What's going on, everybody? BobbyFi here. Should have Rohde in here in a minute. Looks like Rohde is in here. He's just probably getting his sound and stuff together so we can see his beautiful face. And we should have Sheets joining us as well shortly. Hope everybody's having a good week and weekend. I'm here in Idaho, so I will not be playing today, but I do have all my thoughts and everything, written out. And more importantly, we've got our guy Rohde here, who I'm sure is playing big today. Rohde, how you doing, my friend?
What's up? You hear me? Good.
Yeah, you're all good.
Awesome, man. Yeah. A little behind today, I'd say. These lineups are real tough. It's
Yep.
real hard to build some lineups, man.
Yep.
It's going to
tricky
be an
today.
interesting day. I think a little spread out, real tough. Some good stacks. It's just really hard to get to them with keeping your lineup with a decent projection. So it's pretty
Yep.
tough.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that and I think that's partly why you're going to see people paying down at quarterback. I think you're going to see a lot of stuff like that, and we'll get into position by position and game stacks and all that when Sheets gets here. But it is true, a cash build is real tough today. Not much less the tournaments. Trying to get Sheets on in. Sheets, how you doing, man?
Boy, oh boy, it really is cold out there, huh?
It's like, hey, look, 38, which for a Californian is like negative temperatures.
I'm surprised your blood's even pumping at 38.
Oh yeah, I know, it's crazy. But I got to bed early. I got my stuff ready here, and I didn't. I won't be able to play myself. Actually, I'm just advising to these people, and then the hundreds of other friends.
This is Lock City then.
Yeah, exactly.
This is the ultimate Lock City.
That's what happens. All right, so guys, started off. Let's talk about it. What are your sort of overall? Rohde and I Rohde was just mentioning Sheets that it's a tough build today, and it is a tough build on DraftKings. I find as well. It's not a lot of things you feel real comfortable with if you want to try to spend up at certain positions and stuff. I mean, you're just going to see a lot of cheaper, a lot of middling plays. I don't think that there's like any real massive high end expensive plays that are going to be crazy high owned. Unless I'm missing something, I see a lot of 5 and 6K plays just because it's just really hard to get anything else in. I think the one expensive play will be popular is Derrick Henry, which I think makes sense. But how are you guys handling this? Sheets, do you have any value that maybe we haven't talked about? And Rohde, have you found anything that's sort of like a little bit of a cheat code that allows you to get to what you want?
No, I agree with the assessment of the middling ranges being where most of the action is. For me, the highest owned of the more expensive guys is, for me, it's not going to be as much Derrick Henry as would be Austin Eckler. And certainly, he's going to be, I shouldn't say certainly. I mean, I have him owned pretty similarly to Derrick Henry. The environment in that Chargers Seahawks game is just so much better than the Derrick Henry environment, that naturally Eckler is going to show up in just all kinds of stacks, Yeah. So he's going to be so I think that he is going to end up being more popular, but overall, if that's what you're asking, I do agree that it's not as much of a stars and scrubs build this week in general as it is in some other weeks. And it lends to the question. I mean, is it how do you want to play bigger field GPPs? Do you want to flip the whole construction around and try to pay up, or do you want to just accept the fact that it's going to be a mid-range build and maybe get leverage within the same price range of some of these other guys?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And Rohde, what about you? What are you thinking, sort of in terms of just construction, and then we'll get into positions, and then we'll do stacks and all that stuff. But how are you treating this difficult construction? I mean, are you finding yourself dumpster diving a little bit for guys like DeAndre Carter and Zay Jones, who will probably be the more popular wide receivers that are cheap? Or how are you you just middling it out basically?
Yeah, I like those plays you just named, Carter, Zay Jones, a little bit more too. Yeah, I mean, I'm getting some of those a little bit. I do like the high-end quarterbacks. I think Mahomes is kind of unowned today. I think Kelsey and Andrews are kind of unowned today. So some of these higher-end guys, finding some of these dumpster dive guys, I'm kind of looking at, even Wan'Dale Robinson at 4,500. I'm starting to get a little more interested in that, Jacksonville game with Kurt or Zay Jones or someone in there might score some points. So just trying to find those lower owned guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into positions in a minute. I'm just gonna say, Joanne. Joanne said she's got a shot at a top 10 in golf this week. Really good
Ooh,
chance for a great finish. Let's go, Joanne. Always
oh,
rooting
let's
for you, and always
go.
have the competitive golf lineup. So that's nice to see. Marvin Jones playing BBF is saying that it'll cut into Zay's production. It's definitely possible. It's just the uncomfortable decisions you're going to have to make because it's and again, I think that's why people are going to end up spending down at quarterback for the most part this week, with the exception of I think you'll see I think you're going to see nobody near 10% or no, not near, but nobody quite at 10% on the high end, which is why I would be trying to get to it if I could, but again, it's really hard to do. And I tried to fiddle with some builds that I couldn't even enter, and it's really hard to do. So let's start off with you, Sheets, and we'll ask real quick, who do you like at who are you using? Who do you find as your higher owned quarterbacks? And I'm sure it's going to go with your stacks, obviously, but we'll get into that part at the end. But who do you have the highest ownership on your quarterbacks as of right now?
Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head. In that the quarterbacks are going to be tied to the stacks, and I think on a slate like this, it makes a lot of sense because you don't have those big rushing quarterbacks like Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts that can put up these big, huge scores without throwing a bunch of kind of a pure type lineup. So I think on a slate like this, you are going to end up with the majority of your quarterback exposures in those lineups where you have the stack. So with that said, my two highest owned are going to be, at least at this point, Dak Prescott and Geno Smith. They both make a lot of sense. They both have targets that you can go after, both in good game environments, and those are going to be my two highest owned.
Yeah. How about you, Rohde?
Well, it's a Chargers day, I think, today for that game environment.
What a
So
shocker. Rohde's going with the I'm just kidding. I like the Chargers today too, but every day. The first thing we hear from Goldie is the Chargers. Let's go. But expand on it. Sorry, man. Didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no, you're good. I do like the Chargers, and I do like Lamar Jackson. Just spending up for him today too. So I'm kind of like on these spend up quarterbacks. I mean, I think Dak's going to be good, like Sheet said. I think you can even throw a Geno in there cheap in that other side of that Chargers game. So take some shots at some of those cheaper guys. I do really like today as well. So
yeah, I like all those things, and I kind of like the Dak idea. I do think that, and we've got BBF saying sort of the same thing, that at some point Aaron Rodgers will have a game. I don't know if I wanted to play him here. I don't think I would do that. The one that I do think you could just do like a hammer stack on, and I think that maybe you see the real big explosion from today, even though I have very little interest in anyone else in the run back outside of maybe DJ Moore, is the Brady stack. And something we talked about early in the week Sheets. I just feel like this is if they get right, and I think they will, and then you got Carolina just blowing everything up. I think this could be a spot where you see like a 4 touchdown first half from Brady. This is one of those spots that I could see him just going completely nuts. And he's not a guy I usually play in fantasy all that much, but I do think the Brady stack is kind of interesting today. Any thoughts on that before we move on to running back, Rohde, then Sheets?
yeah, I just built a couple Brady stacks. I got him as one of my power sweep lineups. So I'm gonna with DJ Moore run back. So it's affordable stack. The guys in that stack are pretty cheap.
Yeah. How about you, Sheets? What do you think about the Brady idea?
I think the idea is great in theory, but in execution, I'm just not getting it. I'm just not getting there. You could certainly make the argument that could happen, and I think it would be in a weird way. It might be kind of a sadistic thing to do, but maybe like go a naked Brady stack. Just play. If he really wants to be Tom Brady, he'll get literally 1 to 4 different gods.
The only problem is I like I like both of his receivers a lot. I like Godwin.
Well, I like 4. I mean, I like the tight ends, right? You like you like Evans and you like Godwin and
Fournette gets passes. So yeah, I mean he could throw it to all those guys. Yeah.
And you have one of the few cheap options who's definitely the best player under 5K on the slate is DJ Moore. But the question is, you gotta rank that with who's throwing him the ball, and how much longer they'll be throwing him the ball because he'll probably be traded in the next week.
Well, but don't forget there is that garbage time stuff matters. Like if you play that game script, that Tampa puts the 4 touchdowns up, and then they basically just call off the dogs in the second half. I mean, you could see games where Tampa wins 35 to 14 or something, with both touchdowns being like fourth quarter garbage touchdown to DJ Moore and him break the slate. It's
Exactly.
very possible.
Absolutely. I could totally see that. And I could see DJ Moore on, getting 10 catches in garbage time as well. Maybe, showing a little bit more of his value before they trade him. Because his year has looked terrible, but then again, the guys who are throwing him the ball have probably been the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. So one thing I did want to add is that we have Goldie's projections now up on for football. So we have that. I just want to give everybody a little highlight. You guys have seen Goldie on here, really, really good analytical, really well thought out guy. And that's really a general industry aggregate. You're going to notice his and Sheets' numbers are going to be very similar. They're going to be different in a few spots, but really aggregating what the whole industry as a whole is doing. So in terms of ownership and stuff, I think you should look at Goldie's ownership as well as the projections. And remember, that's something that you're not going to get from other sites, is what basically every other major DFS site is doing, or what they're projecting for. And Goldie is really good at this. So I just want to give a little shout out to Goldie, and make sure to check that out if you have SaberSim through True DFS. And we'll separately probably start releasing Goldie's articles projections elsewhere. But I think it's a really, really good thing to check out. So let's jump over to running back. This is Josh Jacobs has exploded 2 weeks in a row. He's going to be just absolutely mammoth chalk, which in the history, the rule was always, if Josh Jacobs is going to be crazy chalk, we fade him. That may not be the case anymore. I think if I was playing a bunch of lineups today, I would find myself to be underweight on Jacobs, just because 40% owned running back is just hard to get to. And you're talking about, I know Joe Mixon hasn't had the year we thought, but Joe Mixon's only 500 more and going to have half the ownership. Damian Pierce is right in the same price range. He'll probably have 1/3 the ownership, or somewhere half to 1/3, maybe the ownership of him. Breece Hall's cheaper. Kenneth Walker's cheaper. They're going to have ownership as well. But it just feels like we're supposed to be underweight on guys like Jacobs, although in a vacuum, it's hard not to like him today. So with all that said, starting with you, Sheets, what are you doing at running back? And then we'll move over to Rohde.
Yeah, I'm pretty much with the field on Jacobs, which puts me probably at about 50%. I don't really like the idea of playing a chalky Josh Jacobs, but the fact is that I think that's kind of influenced by my bias over the last several years of Josh Jacobs, because Josh Jacobs just never really had this role and being healthy at the same time. And I guess those two things probably go together. So I just feel as though that at 6,500 in a positive game script, given his, I won't say new role, but I think the role that they intended for him for like a while that he could finally realize, I think it's kind of a tough fade for me. So I'm not going to go bananas with it, but I'll probably be with the field. So that's kind of where I'm at. And then the other guys were basically guys you mentioned, like Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker, Austin Eckler, who I mentioned before. I have a good amount of him. And the one guy that I want to bring up that kind of alluded to by talking about the game is Leonard Fournette. I mean, they are a 13-point favorite. It does look to be a good game script, and I've heard some narratives, some speak throughout the industry that one of the reasons why you might not want to play him is, how much are they really going to want to lean on him in like the third, fourth quarter, considering that they've had the R White guy, whatever it is. And yeah, that definitely makes some sense. But if he is going to end up somehow being that running back that dips below 10%, like as a result of all of that, he's been pretty chalky for the whole season, and it's going to be really strange if he finally smashes with the perfect game script, So I definitely think that he's a decent pivot. We talked about Derrick Henry a little bit. I think it's kind of interesting got to speak about Saquon Barkley if we're going to speak about Derrick Henry as well, like in the same price range. So I like all the guys pretty much you mentioned. Damian Pierce. I'm nothing. Let's put it this way: I don't have anybody that's that off the board for that big of a percentage. How about that?
Yeah, that makes sense. How about you, Rohde? What are you doing at running back?
Yeah, I mean it's tough. I like a lot of the guys she said. I'm playing mostly them. I mean, if we had a couple sleeper guys, maybe AJ Dillon at 5,600 off of the 5,800. Kenneth Walker. You know, everyone says, "Oh, Aaron Rodgers might have a game," but I'm still waiting on AJ Dillon to show up. So I'm trying to hope for best ball there and stuff like that. So like maybe he shows up today, like But I like all the guys. Bryce Hall a lot. I'm getting to Kenneth Walker. Jacobs mixing in, but Fournette I think is a really good play today too. And it's actually got a little tough price tag at 7,700 if you want to fit him in there with some good stacks. It's kind of tough. So he might get a little bit lower own because he's getting up there a little bit in price towards the Eckler Henry.
I've got another guy. So I got listen. I have 4 more running backs here in my player pool. So I'm gonna tell you who they are. I have a little bit of Jamal Williams. Just kind of a flyer. I mean, he's gonna be like 0% owned at that price tag.
I don't think so. I think Jamal Williams is actually going to end up owned, but I like the play.
So?
He's coming up. He's coming up now a little bit, I think.
I just figured with Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker, Josh Jacobs, every one of them, and Jamie Pierce all at 6K. I can't imagine. Yeah. And then the other guy, who basically DFS players like really hate now, is Ezekiel Elliott. And what I'm hearing is, boy, I'd love to play Tony Pollard because he was so much better or whatever it is. But I mean, in this type of the Dallas-Detroit game can go different ways, like you could play this game as like a shootout and play Dak Prescott and all this stuff and the A. St. Brown run back, which makes certainly amount of sense. But don't forget that Dallas's defense is freaking elite. So this game could get freaking out of hand. And in out of hand games, I mean, boy, Dallas would love nothing more than Zeke Elliott to score 3 touchdowns. You know what I mean? Because they're getting shit for keeping him around, if you want to know the truth. And if they could get him 3 touchdowns again, if that freaking same 6K price tag, that would be fun. The other 2 guys I have in my pool, I may as well just mention them. One guy who, again, he's another 8K guy who's, look, if you're going to play 8K guys, Austin Eckler is going to be played because he's a great play. He's going to be in stacks and all that stuff. Derrick Henry, people have talked about, fine. Saquon Barkley, totally fine. But in that same Derrick Henry game, I mean, if Jonathan Taylor is going to be less than 5% owned, I mean, crap. I mean, I feel as though I should have more of him. But right now I don't. And the last guy on my pool, if you want to talk about Dontrell Hilliard, I just have him as kind of a Henry whatever, but I'm not going to do that. The one other guy, again, I hate to bring up all these running backs, but do you have any interest, Rohde, in like 150 to be a total purist and play somebody from Carolina since there's no McCaffrey? Like, is there any chance that one of these Carolina guys can get the scared PJ Walker dump offs that McCaffrey was gonna get? I know it's certainly not the most efficient, but they weren't going to be efficient anyway against Tampa. Any chance that you're going to play any of these Carolina running backs?
I do have Foreman in one, right?
Okay.
That you just said. Okay. But I do have another guy. I think Kenyon Drake too at 5,100. I forgot to mention him.
Okay. Yes, that's an interesting one. I wanted to touch on that because BBF brought that up also. I would be very surprised if unless things go well. I really think it's just as likely to be Justice Hill or Gus Edwards. I really do. I know Kenyon Drake had a good week last week and numbers wise against the Giants after he came in. I'm not like I don't think anyone should feel guaranteed that Kenyon Drake is going to be like the solo running back in Baltimore at all. And actually, no matter what, Lamar is the real running back. But the matchup is so good. I think that Kenyon Drake is really viable, and I would take that shot. But there's 2 other guys who I would definitely be playing. Even if I was playing 10 lineups, I would take some shots on. And it's hard to know which one to try to commit to. They're going to get a lot of work in a game that I love to stack, which we'll get into stacks in a little bit. But I don't know which one it's going to get the majority. They split carries almost exactly evenly last week, and that's Algier and Huntley for the Falcons. Both those guys are at 5K and 4,900. They'll be completely unowned. They are a little cheaper than all the other guys. It's hard to know which one to go with. I think I would lean Algier, but I kind of like Huntley. I feel like these guys actually have some big play potential that we haven't seen. They've got nice bursts. I know they had a kind of a slow week against San Francisco last week. What are you going to do at San Francisco? But I think both these guys have upside. It's just really hard to know which one to pick. And at 5K and 4,900, they're just cheap enough to where I would definitely be considering them both. Any thoughts on those two guys before we move on to wide receiver sheets? Starting with you.
Which guy specifically?
Algier and Caleb Huntley for Atlanta.
No, not for me.
How about you, Rohde? They ran the ball 32 times last week.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually under on the Cincy game side of it just because of those guys, because I think that pace down on that game is a little bit low. But I just don't know which guy to choose really there. But I mean, they're both viable, I think, but they're getting a lot of work.
Remember, they were up 2 scores pretty early in that game last week, so they're probably not going to run the ball quite as much as they did last time, and you will see some dump offs from Mariota. That's the only thing I'll throw out there. But I don't be surprised if one of those guys actually has a I think we would take an 18 fantasy point game from a cheap guy just because this week is so weird, and you're trying to find ways to save. So I'm just throwing them out there. All right, let's move over to wide receiver, and I'll start with you this time, Rohde. We have the really chalky CeeDee Lamb, and we have a bunch of guys who are going to be played a lot. Who are I don't feel like anywhere near like locks. Other than I like CeeDee a lot, but I don't know what I'm having trouble what to do here. Rohde, what are you doing mostly, and then we'll move over to sheets.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough one for receiver. DK is not too bad on ownership. Mike Williams, on my stack, I kind of like that game. Godwin's 6,300. He's priced pretty cheap. He's getting about 17% owned though, so it's a little bit up there. I got some projections that kind of like Amon St. Brown today coming back in that Detroit game. I know Dallas defense is good, but if he gets to what he was doing, where he's getting 10 catches a game or up towards a lot of targets a game, he could be pretty good at 9% in that game, and I kind of like him as my run back in the DAX stacks a little bit. So, Mike Evans isn't too bad at 6,900, 11.6. I like a lot of DJ Moore today and Hunter Renfrow at the 4,900. I think Hunter Renfrow's probable should be able to get some work today too, a lower ownership. So I'm pretty much staying with those same guys. You got DeAndre Carter at 3,700. We don't know about Allen's status. I got pretty much. I'm thinking Keenan Allen's going to be out today, so I like a little bit of Carter in that game.
Yeah.
So, and then you got the Zay Jones, Wan'Dale Robinson, and that same cheap, all kind of projecting around the same points in that little cheaper range right there. That I kind of like. But yeah, it's tough this week, guys. Really tough.
It is tough. And one thing I just want to add to your Keenan Allen thing that I actually think that I think it's getting closer. I mean, he was limited at practice the one day. He wasn't officially ruled out yet. I just don't be totally shocked if all of a sudden you feel like, oh my God, Keenan Allen's in and I've got 30% DeAndre Carter. What to do? It's going to be a little nerve-wracking because there is a chance that he's good to go today. So just throwing that out there. Of course, you do still have the boost for DeAndre Carter. You're still probably okay because at least you don't have Josh Palmer in there today. So, but if Keenan Allen's out also, I think DeAndre Carter just becomes like an incredible play. I actually think that he should be like way more popular. Just hard to know with what's happening with Allen for sure. That's at least what I've been tracking, unless Sheets has something different. But Sheets, who do you like at receiver? And correct me if I said anything wrong about Keenan Allen.
Well, I mean, the guy that I have very little of, which is really, really bad, and I have to fix this, is I think you really need to get, however much you have of Mike Williams, I think you need to get more of him.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think that he's the real play from this game, regardless of whether Helen is in or not. I mean,
wow.
He got shut down. He got shut down last week. Whatever. I mean, he got shadowed by the best cornerback in football, and yet still they tried. I mean, he had like 100+ air yards. You know what I mean? So they did try. And you have a game that's going to be so. I feel as though people are going to play just a shitload of. It just seems kind of silly to not play Mike Williams out of that game. So. He's going to be the one guy that I guess it addresses something you said going into this slate, is that maybe people aren't paying up for some of these guys, and maybe this is going to be the guy that I'll just kind of force more exposure in than that. The other thing I would say is that otherwise it's Kenneth is Tyler Lockett, is CeeDee Lamb, it's Brandon Cooks from Houston. Amon St. Brown is like a very natural run back to all this Dallas stuff. DJ Moore, like he said, like Rohde said, I am a little concerned about, like you said, the systematic risk from that game in general. And like you said, I mean, if they're really thinking of moving DJ Moore, I mean, it might not be the game to give him 15 targets and 100% of the snaps. I don't know. Especially,
I guess it could go either way depending on how you look at it, right? Like, it's a show out game,
showcase him or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And Zay Jones, like you mentioned, the Cincinnati thing we haven't really discussed all that much, but I'm getting a decent amount of I guess decent amount. Probably I guess with the field of T. Higgins, Drake London on the other side of that, Gallup we talked about. One guy, again, just if you're going to play the Dallas things, and we'll talk about tight end separately, so we'll talk about whatever Schultz later. But Noah Brown's really good, and in general. So if he just gets ignored somehow, and there's no reason why he can't get a touchdown or maybe two. So, so I guess pretty much the guys that we've mentioned already. No, nothing particularly different.
Yeah, and I do want to. We get this spam in here, so I'm just going to block this real quick. I did want to address some of the things that people are saying in chat because of some of this stuff, because I do think that, like, well, first, what like a BBF is saying with Waller and other wide receivers banged up, it seems like Devontae's a good play, even though the Texans pass defense. And I agree. If you can find the way to get to Adams comfortably, I really like that idea. I think it is a really good spot. But I would say that I like what Rohde said before about Renfrow. I think that maybe that's what you do in that game, because that way you save the money. And Renfrow's a really good receiver. Maybe you go more. I think that Renfrow can benefit in a big way with Waller out. I also did want to address the Jimmy G, the Green Monster, Jimmy G. So I will never. I mean, on a full slate, I don't think I could ever click Jimmy G's name. I just think it's a terrible decision every time. I don't know if the guy's ever scored 25 fantasy points in his life. I really don't. But I like. It's funny because I like Ayuk, Samuel, and Kittle all fine. It's a great matchup, obviously, and a good pace. But can we expect Jimmy G to ever get to 30? I personally would never co-sign on a Jimmy G stack, even against the Chiefs. But it is interesting that game is probably getting. We don't usually see Chiefs games getting probably as little ownership as they're going to get today. And some of it is the McCaffrey cutting into it, and what are they going to do with deep? Like, it is interesting. But so I like the game idea. I just don't like the idea of playing Jimmy G in a triple stack. I just want to throw that out personally.
Well, to play devil's advocate on that for just a minute. Remember, I don't think it's going to be that high scoring a slate in general, especially if like one of those 2 or 3 key games doesn't perform. So I don't think that I say this every week and yet it always happens. I was about to say you don't really maybe even need 30 out of Jimmy G, whatever, but you always do. You do always need 30 out of the quarterback.
I just compare him to people in his price range, and I think he actually is going to get some ownership today. And I just think, how often does he outscore Carr, Smith, and Daniel Jones? All of them. Right. I just don't see that happening very often.
That's true.
But I mean, look, there's times for it to happen. I just can't get. And if I play him, I don't think I could do it with a triple stack, just with how much they like to run the ball there. And I think they're going to try to run the ball, especially with McCaffrey. They now have McCaffrey and Samuel to run the ball. So I think you're going to see them run the ball a lot. That's, I guess, more what I was.
Hey, Rohde, you're not playing any Christian McCaffrey, are you?
0. No.
Okay.
No, it's probably a week soon, I think. But it is weird. You're going to see a 0.2% owned McCaffrey for the first time ever. Like, he's a guy who's literally played by no one except for people who don't realize what team he's on. It's kind of interesting. All right, Rohde, starting with you real quick. Let's jump over to tight ends. I personally would be trying to force in a couple of Andrews, a couple of Lamar to Mark Andrews stacks in. And I think Andrews will be, it's weird because Andrews is going to be popular, but all the other popular guys are going to be super, super cheap. So Andrews and Foster Moreau, I think, are going to be significantly higher owned than most everybody else. I think Gerald Everett will get some. I like Kittle, and that's what's funny is I like each of the plays with Garoppolo. I just don't like Garoppolo triple stack counting on him throwing the ball 40 times against the Chiefs. I just don't feel great about that. But there's a lot of guys who, are in a similar thing. I guess I'll just say my quick favorite. I would be taking some shots on Kyle Pitts. I understand Rohde's concern about the pace of that game because of Atlanta trying to run the ball. I think their numbers are a little bit skewed based on game flow. They've been in every game. They're 6-0 against the spread. If you think that if they can somehow, if it's a 1-score game back and forth, or if they're down 2 scores early somehow, I could see Kyle Pitts getting a ton of work. So I really like Kyle Pitts as a play this week at 4,300. And I think that there's going to be a time, and I know we keep saying this, but Kyle Pitts is still going to break free again. Maybe this is about when he started getting going last year. So I love that play. I'll just leave that. That's it for my part of the tight end. Rohde, you talk about yours, and then we'll go to Sheets.
I like Andrews and Kelsey even up top at the higher spends today. I think they're really tough to get to. I mean, people aren't going to play them just because you can't get to them. And hell, we've seen Kelsey have monster games, and all these other garbage tight ends that we're going to play at 3K. I mean, some of these guys might not even get a pass. I mean, Cade Otton's in a good spot, and Brady likes his tight ends. There's a game, but I mean, we also like Fournette. We also like Evans and Godwin in that game. So like he might not even get the ball.
And it could be Rudolph instead of Cotton.
Oh yeah, and they have other tight ends that he's like too, So like, and then you got Foster Moreau with no Waller out, but like, he's had some big games in the past, but then he's disappeared. You got Renfro back, and you got Adams there that gets a lot of the work. So people are playing these other cheaper tight ends. Too, you might just want to take the sure points where you're going to get Kelsey could get 8 balls today and 8 catches and turn one of them into a touchdown or 2 into a touchdown. He's got 30 points. So yeah, Robert Tonyan, another guy that's getting a lot of plays from Aaron Rodgers. It looks like I like Dalton Schultz a lot today. In that Dak stack I got, Gerald Everett's obviously going to be a good play. I think he in a good game. I mean, he's getting up there in ownership. I do like Kittle as well. Only about 6% I'm seeing. Noah Fant's a guy I'm getting to a lot at 3,100. He's been getting the ball actually. Finally, the first beginning of the season he wasn't, and Gino's been spreading it out a little bit more. But I mean, you got other people there like Will Disley there too, so that's a little tough one to get to. I'm pretty much real spread out today. Kind of picking one of these guys that fit, whether So my stack.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be pretty common. I like that. I love the Fant call, by the way. I have been attacking tight ends against the Chargers forever, and it gets you like cheap exposure to that game. So I really like that call by Fant. I think that would be the guy I would side with, maybe over some of these other than maybe Foster Moreau. He'd be my favorite real cheapie. Sheets, who do you like at tight end?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you who I'm getting to, and then I'll tell you who the best play is. I mean,
okay.
I mean, I'm getting to these guys that you mentioned. I mean, like Foster Moreau, I got a whole bunch of that. Dalton Schultz, in that game environment. And I'm getting some double tight end lineups as a result of that. But the best play is the guy that you mentioned. I mean, when Randall Cobb went out of the game, like they were lining Tonyan up in the freaking slot and got 12 freaking targets and he had 10 receptions last week and they put what's his name and they put Cobb on the injured reserve. He's had 24 targets this season and he's gotten 21 catches. And people are going to pay down for all this 2,800 stuff. People are going to keep playing Kyle Pitts, and people might pay up for Andrews and Kelsey or whatever. But I definitely think that Tanyan's probably the best player.
You love. I swear, as much as Rohde likes the Chargers, Sheets loves Tonyan. He
had him. He got 19 fantasy points with no touchdowns last week. I mean,
I know. No. And by the way, you were right. And I made the point last week. Hey, when is he ever going to give me 10 fantasy points? And then of course he goes out and has the big game. So I don't blame you. I don't hate that at all.
But there could legitimately be like a scheme thing. You know what I mean? Like when he went out, when Cobb went out. You had him coming out of the slot, and if they're going to go right back to him now, again, I don't know why they would go back to something where they lost last. You know what I mean? Like, so maybe they're like, maybe they don't see that. Oh boy, he had a good game, 10 for 12. Let's go back to it. Consider they lost to the Jets. You playing that way, so maybe they don't do that. But at I don't know what his ownership's going to be, but it's going to be less than these other guys. I mean, I really like that play.
Yep. I think, yeah, I get it. All right, let's talk real quickly. Let's I guess we don't really have any other position things other than the defenses. And I guess that, this is also, again, they're doing a better job. Why can't they make it this hard in basketball to get the guys you want? Because, you're going to have the Jets, you're going to have the Titans, but none of these, we're not getting the 2K teams every week that we used to get. So Sheets, why don't you start this one off? Who are you using who you find the most in your defenses? And then we'll
this is testing my metal here, because I really don't want to use, as I mentioned, defenses that for more than 20% ownership. But the two teams, I mean, they're just are total freaking standouts this week. And again, I don't want to get into this because defense, you just can't have a standout defense. But the Jets and the Bucks for me are just such elite plays that it's kind of hard for me not to play. Listen, they're totally different price ranges, which is great. You know what I mean? To get two different types of builds. But I mean, you have Carolina with no players, and Tampa, coming off of a miserable loss. They're gonna shut them out, right? I mean, it's ridiculous. So I don't know. And then you have the Jets against whoever the hell. First of all, the Jets their defense has been good anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're against the backup quarterback in Denver, and they're only 2,600. So I'm not gonna listen. I'm gonna be very steadfast in my advice that to not play more than 20% of defenses. But if you're playing two lineups, I mean, I couldn't imagine playing anybody but those two teams in one of those two lineups.
Mm-hmm. Rohde, how about you? I agree. I mean, those they do seem like the obvious standouts to me as well. But what are you doing, Rohde, at defense? I know.
Yeah, I'm pretty much eating the Jets today, and I've done that before where I locked in these cheap defenses. But I mean, I'm spreading it out too. I got some weird ones. I got some like Houston even against Derek Carr a little bit. I like a ton of Raiders today, but I'm playing a little Houston because they're cheap. They're a little cheaper than Jets. I like Indy a little bit against Tennessee a little bit. I mean, I don't have too many off the wall ones. Jets, Bucks are harder to get to, I think. So maybe if you do the Bucks, you're a little bit less owned than the Jets because they're a little bit more pricey and people are struggling to build lineups today. So maybe the Bucks do come in if you want to try getting a little bit more of the expensive defenses in. And even the Cowboys defense today against Detroit, I know they've looked really good on getting sacks. Like they're really getting to the quarterback, lots of rushes. Goff might throw it up just for easy pick six or something.
I like that Dallas idea.
Yeah, they're really getting to the quarterback.
And the other teams that I think you could play is like kind of like screaming against quarterbacks that can deliver pick sixes and fumble sometimes. So you could play Kansas City against Jimmy G. I think that's pretty strong. And again, like if you get like a shootout type of game where points are going to be necessary. I mean that even makes it worse for Jimmy G. You know what I mean? Like, and when he throws off that back foot, like a pick six is always in order. And Kansas City is very aggressive defensively, for better or worse. So, and the other one that's very similar is to play Jacksonville defense against Daniel Jones. I mean, listen, the Giants have been really well coached. They've put some good scheme up, but they are playing a little cutesy, like they're running reverses and they're doing like some funky stuff, which is good. But it's also that kind of stuff is pretty conducive to bad stuff happening too. So and Daniel Jones is still over time very 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 turnover prone. So and Jacksonville has been very very opportunistic. They got a pick six against Jalen Hurts. You know what I mean? So I think Jacksonville's a good play also.
Yeah, I'm just going to throw out a couple of I like the Jackson. That was going to be one of my two of the sub 5% owned defenses. And then the one I really, really like is the Falcons, even though that game, they're 2,400, so the cheapest ones out there. We all know Joe Burrow does two things. He holds the ball too long, and he's willing to throw it up for grabs. Yep. Those are two things you want to take a defense against, and it doesn't even matter if you give up 30 points to them. You can absolutely take care of it. The problem is it's hard to weigh them as being better than the Jets, but is it? Like, I mean, it just seems like, yeah, you have the right recipe for something that could really go off there. And the Atlanta defense, for all, I'm not saying this is an elite defense, they are certainly better than we thought they would be coming into the season. And I think that one's kind of interesting. Before we get to stacks, I'm going to ask you guys, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. We really appreciate all the stuff. And, we get all of our plays are up there on all my core plays and early builds and all of Rohde's stacks, top stacks, and all that stuff. So make sure to check out our stuff out, on the site. Don't just hang out in Discord, but also please welcome in Discord. If you're not in our Discord already, you should be. I also want to address a couple of things that was said by BBF that I liked. Another name that was mentioned at receiver that we didn't talk about, Amari Cooper. I do like that Ravens game. So I really like the idea of playing some Amari Cooper, and I just wanted to throw that out there. And then the Panthers' $2,200 defense. I can't ever say that there's something wrong with playing any defense, so I have no problem if you want to play the Panthers. I personally didn't get to it, but you could see the weird Brady game again, an ugly one again. I just think this is the week Brady. They put the hammer down and they go kind of nuts. And let's go over to favorite stacks. I've got 5 different ones, and I'll sort of finish this one out. I'll start with you on this one, Sheets. What games are you stacking up the most this week?
For those of you who've been kind of following along, you could probably figure out what that's going to be, but it's going to be Seattle. It's going to be Dallas. It's going to be the Chargers. And then, here's something I don't think that many people are going to do. You're going to see some Josh Jacobs, and you're going to see maybe some Vegas stuff, but I'm going to have some Houston stacks as well. Cooks is going to look like a good play, but I don't think people are going to use him in stacks, So I'm going to play some Davis Mills with him, and the other guy from that team is that wide receiver. Help me,
Nico Collins.
Yes, Nico Collins.
Yes.
So I think that Mills with those two guys is going to be kind of a way to get a little bit different. So I like that a little bit. I guess that would be my off the board thing. So I'm probably going to be under on some of these other teams that I liked earlier in the week. Like I'm only going to have maybe like 5% Cincinnati stacks. Baltimore, you mentioned, maybe a little bit less Tampa, but it's going to be a lot. Listen, it's going to be a lot of Seattle. It's going to be a lot of Dallas Chargers. Nothing particularly earth shattering at the top of my exposure list.
Yeah, no, that's understandable. How about you, Rohde?
For stack wise, Chargers, even some of the Seattle side of that game. I do like Lamar a lot today. Even Mahomes, I got them in a couple of my bigger lineups. Playing the higher end of quarterbacks. Even I got to run it back with someone like Lamar, like Amari Cooper. I do like how you just mentioned in that stack. I do like some Dak in the Detroit game as well. I'm kind of under on the Cincy Atlanta stack. Some pieces maybe out of the Green Bay Washington, but none stacked there. Pieces in Indy and Tennessee, no stacks. Jets, it's Bryce Hall and defense and nothing else. So looking at a few of the games, and I do like Brady and a lot of DJ Moore, but that's it in that game. So basically, you guys know where I'm going after I listed all those games out. So.
Yeah, no, I like that. I like the Brady just full stack, and then if you want to run back DJ Moore, that's fine with me. But I don't even think you necessarily have to. I really like the call you just made, Sheets, about Nico Collins. By the way, I do think that it's probably worth noting that he's been a factor in every game so far. He just hasn't had the big explosion. So we talk about these other speculative 4,200, 3,700 plays. The guy's had 44 yards or more in every game, 50 more in every other game. He just hasn't quite had that one really big one. So I do like the Nico Collins call. I would be overweight on Cincinnati, Atlanta. I'd be overweight on Baltimore, Cleveland. I would be overweight Dallas, Detroit. And I would be overweight the Chargers, Seattle. But the thing that I would try and focus in on, and it's hard maybe you do it even without the quarterbacks, but I would be trying to get a ton of exposure. We didn't talk about Marquez Valdes-Scantling or Smith-Schuster or Hardman or any of these guys from KC and San Francisco. Just KC every week. There's always a guy on each side usually who goes nuts. It didn't happen last week for KC. Actually, it's not has happened as much this year. But I just like that game environment when it's not being – you have the highest total on the board, right, or tied for the highest total on the board right there within a point. And there's not a whole lot of plays in that game that are really getting a ton of ownership. So I just think that trying to get some exposure there is probably a good idea. I do have a couple of quick plays I want to throw out. And Sheets, I'm going to echo what you said at the beginning of the week. I really think that Jacksonville is going to beat the hell out of the Giants this week. I really, really like Jacksonville in this matchup. And that's just my one. I don't want to call it a lock because I hate that term, as you know, but it's my favorite bet of the week is Jacksonville to beat to cover against the Giants. And then I guess what the play that I would be the highest overweight on to this week is I'm about to ask you guys for your like sort of the guy, maybe your biggest leverage on the field kind of a play. And Sheets is usually pretty good about this stuff. I don't have an exact one, but I really liked what Rohde said about Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I think that's just like it's a spend up that I don't see that many people going to, probably going to be in like the 5 to 7% range. And I think against this Dallas defense, which has been awesome, but you will see some gambling, even from that great tight end, the great corner who led the league in interceptions last year. They just will take some gambles. And I just really like the idea of getting overweight Amon-Ra St. Brown, especially in the 150 max tournaments. Rohde, how about some favorite maybe some favorite plays again that are sort of against the field? I like that you're taking it. You have a stand on the lower side of the Atlanta thing, but Atlanta game. But what, like, whether it's a game, whether it's a player, is there anything that really stands out that you really want to have a strong stance on that you're going to leave us with here?
Renfro is probably my guy that I'm a little bit more over the field on than anybody for that Raiders game. But I don't mind Sheets takes on stacking the other side of that game, like going with Houston, getting Cooks. I'm trying to get in some more Damian Pierce in that game as well for the running back there. So yeah, I mean, kind of getting a little different in those spots to add to my other spots, but already getting different with these spend ups is really challenging. When you're playing Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, even on FanDuel, right? Like you can't even get Lamar Cooper, like Amari Cooper, Mike Williams, Renfro. Like you're still having to find one value play over there. Like it's really tough to get these spend up QBs, I think. So I'm already taking a stand on getting weird there, I think.
Yep. And before we go to Sheets real quick, just want to announce that the Carolina did announce, as I sort of thought they would, that Chuba Hubbard is going to be the starter, not Foreman. So I would actually probably be higher on Hubbard than Foreman if I was going to play a weird play from that game. Sheets, how about you? Sort of leverage against the field. What is a sort of a take of yours? You've mentioned them.
Yeah, so I'm going to reiterate the guys that I mentioned earlier. Mike Williams from the Chargers, Robert Tonyan from the Packers. And then, like I said, the Houston side of the of the Vegas game, and I'll throw in one other guy again. Like it's hard to imagine that tight ends really are that important, but like that's what I've been hearing all week, that you got to get these right. So you could go ahead and play OJ Howard from Houston, in a similar type of idea. So I guess those would be my whatever. Before we go, I do think that we should probably touch on FanDuel. If Rohde, if you're playing FanDuel and there's anything different about what your exposure is going to be over there, I think people would probably want to know about that. But while you go over that, I'll just share what I'm doing. On FanDuel, I'm actually really, really heavy on Joe Mixon.
Love it.
I have like 60% Joe Mixon over on FanDuel. I guess that's one bit of difference. And then what else? As far as team stacks over, it's the same thing. I have a little more on the Vegas side on FanDuel for some reason, and a little more Cincinnati on FanDuel. But I guess that's the main thing that I would emphasize on FanDuel is that I have more Mixon. You know what else I have? I have a full 20% of AJ Dillon on FanDuel. I know that you talked about him a little bit. So there's that. Are you playing FanDuel? And if so, do you have any particular takes over there?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I haven't got too much of my FanDuel yet. I'm going to be cranking that out here in the next hour, big time.
Okay.
Yeah, I see Dillon's popping a little bit. Mixon's really popping over here, like you just said. So, I mean, I think it's also more spread out over here. Like, there's a lot of receivers that are in that like 7K range that are really loaded. Like, I mean, but it's also hard to jam these guys in unless you're playing like even grabbing a Renfro at 5,700 or DJ Moore at 5,500 or Dillon at 5,600 or 5,700 as well over here. So like you're going to have to figure out which one of those cheap guys you're going to play with some of these, good plays. But you got CD, you got Amon at 7,500, so a lot of 7K receivers you're going to want to load up with over here, I think. So
I'd like to let you know, Bobby. I am playing. I'm playing something other than the Millie Maker this week. I am stepping up, and I'm playing one entry in I think in the power sweep, whatever the 150 is. So
so you're stepping up. It's so funny because it's sort of the opposite of what I do is what you're doing here. You always go for all the millionaire makers. I limit my millionaire maker lineups, and I do the opposite. And the funny part is it's actually more your general way of thinking that I would think that you would do that, but you don't do it because you're more of the actually in the long run, betting the millionaire maker is probably the lowest equity of everything.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
But that's what you do, and I love
you know what I'm doing. I'm really trying to enjoy the process of like building the portfolio. You know what I mean? So in the 150 max stuff, I really enjoy trying to do that. But I am going to try to come up with a couple of good lineups this time for those single entry things. So we'll see what happens. Yep. We'll have the showdown slate. I did put initial projections up, but I'll follow this up later. It's Miami Pittsburgh this tonight.
Oh, that's a good one.
For those of you that want to root, I have Tampa in my survivor pool.
This is big time stuff here for your survivor pool, right?
What's that?
This is a big time for your survivor pool.
Well, it depends which one. So one of the ones I'm in, I'm down to 2 people. So that one I'm really just playing Tampa, and if the other, it's funny because if the other guy plays Tampa too, which I imagine he will, then if they lose, then we just split it right away. You know what I mean? So in a weird way, my entry's a little stronger than his. So he's actually, if he plays Tampa, he's probably better off rooting for them to lose. Anyway, in any case. And then in my other survivor pool entry, I'm actually playing. It's much more people left, so I have to be a little more aggressive. I'm actually going to be playing Miami tonight over Pittsburgh and saving Tampa in that one. So, so those are the 2 teams I'm going to be rooting for today in Survivor, and of course, what that also means I'm going to be rooting for all the other underdogs.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
nice. Rohde, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Nope.
So I'm gonna have a special treat for you guys if anybody's interested. So this is the deal. So at 6 o'clock today, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. There's a pretty healthy NBA slate tonight at 7 o'clock, which I am gonna play. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna probably go live at 6 or 6:15, and what I'm hoping is that we can also have that double as an NFL sweat. You know what I mean? God forbid anybody's deep in something, we can talk about that and talk about how the slate's developing, things like that. So what I'm planning on doing is being live from how about 6:15, 6:15 to 7:15 or something like that. And I'll go over the NBA, what I'm doing there, and I'm going to go, and then hopefully, you guys will come on if you got anything to sweat or if you just want to BS about the slate, how it's progressing or stuff. I think we could make that fun. So maybe we'll tweet that a little later in the day. See if we can get some people to show up for that. And we'll post it in the general and see what's up.
Awesome. Sounds great. Well, guys, I'm wishing you guys all the luck. You have to win all the money this week because I'm not playing, so I can't even get a portion of it. So I'm hoping for everybody out there.
If I win the Millie Maker, I'll throw you a couple of hundred. Okay.
I appreciate it. I'll take it. I'll take whatever I can get. Really appreciate all you guys. Please like before you get out of here. And we want to see the screenshots in the Discord. We want to see some big wins. And I'm going to let Rohde close us out as he always does with.
Let's get it.
Let's go, guys. Good luck, everybody.